Chapter 3 Miss Havisham and the Strange House. Mrs. Joe often made occasional trips to the market with Uncle Pumblechook on market days. On one such market day, Joe did the course while she was away. When she came back with Mr. Pumblechook, she was full of energy. "Now," she said, taking off her outer clothes, "if this boy isn't thankful today, he never will be." I tried to look as grateful as possible. "I just hope he doesn't get spoiled," she added, "though I have my doubts." "Oh no, ma'am," Mr. Pumblechook assured her. "She knows better than that." "She," I silently mouthed the word to Joe, who did the same. "What are you two staring at?" asked my sister. "Miss Havisham wants this boy to come and play at her house, and of course he's going. And he'd better play well, or he'll regret it." Everyone in our area had heard of Miss Havisham, an extremely wealthy and mysterious lady who lived in a large gloomy house with locked gates and barred windows. Mrs. Joe gave me a rough scrubbing and dressed me in the stiffest clean clothes. Then she handed me over to Mr. Pumblechook, who made a little speech. "Boy, always be thankful to your friends, especially those who raised you by hand." "Goodbye, Joe." "God bless you, Pip, old chap," Joe replied warmly. I had never been apart from Joe before. With my heart full and eyes wet with soap suds, I couldn't see any stars at first from the cart, but they soon appeared, though they gave no answers to why I had to play at Miss Havisham's or what I was meant to do there. The next morning, Mr. Pumblechook and I had breakfast behind the shop. It was terrible company. All he did was ask math questions. 7 times 9, boy, he'd say. This went on throughout breakfast. I was hardly able to eat. For such reason, I was very glad when 10 o'clock came and we started for Miss Havisham's. We arrived at the house. The house was made of old bricks and looked as unwelcoming as a prison. Soon, a pretty but proud-looking young girl came to let us in. She held keys and seemed about my age, though much more mature and elegant. "This is Pip," said Mr. Pumblechook. "Is it?" she replied coldly. "Come in, Pip." When Mr. Pumblechook tried to follow, she stopped him. "Oh," she said, "did you wish to see Miss Havisham?" "If Miss Havisham wished to see me," replied Mr. Pumblechook. "Ah," said the girl, "but she doesn't." She said it so finally that Mr. Pumblechook could not protest, though it hurt his dignity. My young conductress locked the gate and we went across the courtyard. "This is Sattie's house. Don't loiter, boy," said the young lady. Although we were the same age, she treated me like a servant. The first thing I noticed was that the passages were all dark. She took up a burning candle and at last we came to the door of a room, and she said, "Go in." She left me and walked away, taking the candle with her. I knocked at the door and was told from within to enter. Inside was a room lit only by candles with no daylight. It looked like a lady's dressing room with a fancy mirror, table, and chairs. In an armchair, with an elbow resting on the table and her head leaning on that hand, sat the strangest lady I have ever seen or shall see. She was dressed entirely in white, with lace, silks, and satin. A long bridal veil hung from her white hair, and glittering jewelry covered her neck and hands. More jewels and clothes were scattered around the room. She had one white shoe on, the other was near the table. Her watch and chain and some trinkets lay with her gloves, handkerchief, and flowers near at hand. Everything that I saw had once been white, had faded to yellow, and lost its luster. The dress she wore hung loose, and she seemed to have shrunk to skin and bone. She looked more like a ghastly waxwork I had once seen. "Who is it?" she asked. "Pip, man. Pumblechook's boy. I've come to play." "Pip, come closer," she said. "Let me look at you." When I stood before her, I noticed that her watch had stopped at 20 minutes to 9. "Look at me," said Miss Havisham. "You're not afraid of a woman who has never seen the sun since you were born." "No," I lied. She placed her hands over her heart. Do you know what I touch here? Yes, ma'am, your heart. Broken, she said, slowly removing her hands. I want to see someone play, she declared, waving impatiently. Play, play, play. I'm very sorry for you, ma'am, but I can't play just now. It's so new here, so strange, so fine and melancholy. She called out, Estella! The girl came, lighting up the passage with her candle like a star. Miss Havisham beckoned her to come close and said, Let me see you play cards with this boy. With this boy? Why, he's a common labouring boy, Estella said. Well, you can break his heart, Miss Havisham replied. What do you play, boy? Estella asked me. Nothing but beggar my neighbour, ma'am. Then beggar him, Miss Havisham said. So we sat down to play. It was then that I began to understand that everything in the room had stopped, like the watch and the clock a long time ago. So she sat corpse-like as we played at cards. He calls knaves jacks, said Estella with disdain. And what coarse hands he has, and what thick boots. I had never been ashamed of my hands before, but her contempt was so strong that I changed it. She won the game, and I dealt. I misdealt, as was natural when I knew she was lying in wait for me to do wrong. She called me a stupid, clumsy, labouring boy. She says many harsh things, Miss Havisham noted, but you say nothing back. What do you think of her? Whisper it to me. I think she is very proud, I whispered. Anything else? I think she is very pretty. Anything else? She's very insulting. Anything else? I want to go home. You'll go soon, said Miss Havisham. Play the game out. So I played the game to an end with Estella, and she begged me. Come here again after 6 days, you hear? Yes, ma'am. Stella, take him down. Let him have something to eat. Go, Pip. I followed the candle down, and when she opened the entrance, the rush of daylight quite confounded me. You are to wait here, boy, said Estella, and disappeared. I took the opportunity to look at my coarse hands and my common boots, and my opinion was not favourable. She came back with some bread and meat and a little mug of beer. She placed them on the stone floor and gave the food without looking at me, as if I were a dog in a disgrace. I was so ashamed and angry that tears came to my eyes. When she was gone, I hid behind the gate and cried. I kicked the wall and pulled my hair, filled with self-hate. Eventually, I got rid of my injured feelings and found the bread and meat acceptable and the beer warm. So I wiped my tears, ate the food, drank the beer, and felt better. I saw Estrella approaching with the keys to let me out. I did not wish her to see my terror, for then she would have reason to look down upon me. She asked, Why don't you cry? Because I don't want to. You do, said she. You have been crying till you are half blind, and you are crying now. She laughed scornfully and pushed me out and locked the gates upon me. On the walk home, I thought about how rough and common I was, how I had thick boots and didn't even know not to call knaves jacks. 6 days later, I returned. Estrella let me in wordlessly and led me to another room. She locked the gate after me as before, taking no notice of me. Then, taking the candle in her hand, she looked over her shoulder, saying, You are to come this way today, and took me to another part of the house. We went in at the door, which opened into a gloomy room. There was some company in the room, and Estrella said, Stand there until you are called, she said. People were already in the room. When a bell rang, Estella said, Now, boy. As we walked, she suddenly turned. Am I pretty? Yes, I think you are very pretty. Am I insulting? Not so much as you were last time. She slapped my face hard. How about now? I shall not tell you. Why don't you cry again, you little wretch? Because I shall never cry for you again, said I, though I was crying inside. As we went upstairs, we met a gentleman groping his way downstairs. Whom have we here? Said the burly man, with a large head and of an exceedingly dark complexion. His eyes looked sharp and suspicious. I didn't know it then, but he would matter to me later. Soon we reached Miss Havisham's door. So, she said, ready to play? I don't think I am, ma'am. You are unwilling to play. Are you willing to work? Yes, ma'am. Then go into that opposite room, said she, and wait there till I come. The room was dark and smelled like decay. A fire had been lit, and some candles dimly lighted the chamber. Everything was covered with dust and mold and breaking to pieces. The most prominent object was a long table with a tablecloth spread on it, as if a feast had been in preparation, when the house and the clock all stopped together. Something in the center of the table was so heavily covered with cobwebs that its form was undistinguishable. Black fungus grew out of it. Spiders and blotchy bodies were running in and out of it. Mice and bugs scurried all around. As I stood fascinated, Miss Havisham appeared beside me, placing her hand on my shoulder. She leaned on a stick and looked like a witch of the place. "This is the place where I shall be laid when I am dead. They will come and look at me here." By they, she meant the company of strangers I had seen earlier, but right now I shrank under her touch. She pointed to the center of the table. "Do you know what that is?" "I can't guess, ma'am." "It's a wedding cake. Mine." Then she leaned on me and told me to walk with her around the room. That, it seemed, was my work. Presently, Estrella returned. "Let me see you two play at cards," said Miss Havisham. We sat down as before. I was beggared as before, and Estella insulted me as before. After we had played half-dozen games, a day was appointed for my return. I was to be fed in the same dog-like manner and left to wander about. I wandered into the garden, which was in wilderness. I myself reached a corner and looked in at another window. Outside, I met a pale young gentleman with light hair and red eyelids. "Hello, young fellow. Who let you in?" he asked. "Hello," said I. "Miss Estella." "Who gave you leave to prowl about?" "Miss Estella." "Come and fight," said the pale young gentleman. "Stop a minute. I ought to give you a reason for fighting. There it is." In a most irritating manner he slapped me, pulled my hair, and head-butted me. I hit back and, to my shock, knocked him down, twice. Lying there with a black eye, he said, "That means you've won." He seemed so brave and innocent. It was a gloomy victory. "Can I help you?" I asked, and he said, "No, thank you." I said, "Good afternoon," and he said the same to you, and I came out into the courtyard. Back in the courtyard, Estella was waiting for me with the keys. Instead of going straight to the gate, she stepped back into the passage and said, "Come here. You may kiss me if you like." She turned her cheek. I kissed it. I would have done anything for that kiss, but it felt empty, given as if I were a filthy dog.